prediction, crash, and also possibly a shutdown of the stock market on March 13th, 2026. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. This email, or also this video, is documenting the prediction that the US stock market will crash on Friday, March 13th, 2026, specifically this date. It'll be a black swan financial event, which is an unexpected, shocking event. It is predicted that also this will be the initial shocking event, the initial shock to what will become the biggest stock market crash in history. It is also predicted, or also I should say speculated, it's not necessary for this prediction, but it's also speculated that on March 13th, trading will be temporarily halted. The loss in the S&P 500 stock index on March 13th is speculated to be large enough to trigger a circuit breaker that temporarily shuts down trading. Trading is halted when the S&P 500 index loses 7%, 13%, and 20% in one trading day. In other words, the S&P 500 index is speculated to lose on this March 13th date 7% or possibly 13% or 20%. And again, the post date of this video and this email and forensic notes PDF document is documenting that this prediction is being made ahead of time. This knowledge of this prediction for March 13th, 2026 has been known since early or late February. Late February. Well, the date here is March 7th in this email, but this was known a week or two even before this. Pope Francis died at the age of 88, and he was elected on the date 3/13. His prophetic funeral was attended by Trump, whose name Trump is equal to 88 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. And the prophetic funeral in which Trump attended of Pope Francis, who died at 88 and was elected on the date 3/13, Trump, 88, was at the funeral 3 months and 13 days before the date 8/8 and the release of the movie Freakier Friday. All right, so I think this is pretty straightforward, but I'll just repeat it anyway to make this very clear. We have a pattern here. Clearly, the Pope died at the age of 88, and he was elected on the date 3/13, which, as I explained earlier in this video, if I'm cutting this video into different parts, I'll repeat that. The reason why he was elected on the date 3/13 is because Rome converted to Catholicism on the date 3/13, or rather 313 AD. And that's significant because Rome, when it converted to Catholicism, didn't do away with its pagan religion. It just repackaged it to make it appear like Christianity. I mean, there's countless examples, anecdotes of this. But for one thing, the worship of Mary is a continuation of the worship of the fertility goddess, which was depicted in ancient art the same as the Madonna, Mother Mary with the baby Jesus in her arms. Exact same image of the fertility goddess and sun in Ishtar, Aphrodite, Isis. Okay. And anyway, so that's just like that's just one example of the pagan religion carried over in 313 AD. It's significant and it's prophetic. And like I said earlier, anyone with any wisdom will recognize that a pope, that it was always going to be a pope that would be the Antichrist from the very beginning. From, well, not the very beginning, not the first century, but since the rise of Rome, or rather Roman Catholicism. Anyway, that's explained too many other times in other videos. But, so it's very significant, this 313 date in God's signs. And incidentally, once again, this crash we are talking about will be on a Friday on the date 313 this year, Friday the 13th. And it'll be exactly, once again, 13 years after this 313 date when the Antichrist was elected the Pope. Or when the Pope was elected and he is the Antichrist. So, okay, he died at 88. Now, Trump is Mr. 88 because the word Trump in archaic English means the sounding of a trumpet or a trumpet. And so Trump is God's trumpet, trumpeting prophetic signs. And so God's trumpet, attended the funeral for the Antichrist, who died at 88. And Trump is equal to 88. That's a confirmation of the significance of trumpet attending the funeral of the Antichrist. That in itself, right? There's more to that prophetic sign of his attendance at the funeral when he met with, for example, Zelensky, but that's another story. Well, no, it isn't actually, because that's the second of the two Antichrists. So the two Antichrists were identified with this prophetic funeral because Zelensky is Mr. number 44. Why is that? Well, when the war started, it started just literally a few days after he turned 44 years old. And at the time, Ukraine was made up of 44 million people before the Exodus, as in the Bible Exodus. And throughout the first prophetic year of this war, when Zelensky was making the rounds on the international stage, including at the UN, for example, he was 44 years old. And all of this was a prophetic sign hinting at the 44th president Antichrist on the world stage, including at the UN. Also, Zelensky is the first, and God uses firsts for prophetic signs, he was the first, or is the first Jewish leader of Ukraine, which hints at the first black president, the 44th president, who will persecute Jews, including in Israel. Okay, so now that I've established more on this prophetic funeral, we have again Trump 88 at the 88-year-old's funeral. All right, and again, he was elected on the date 313. And what we have here is that from the funeral, it is 3 months and 13 days to the date 88, which obviously hints at 88 and Trump and the age of the Antichrist's death. And on this day, this 88 date, was the release of the movie Freakier Friday, which was released on a Friday. Now, in the book of Genesis, the flood began on the date 217. On 9/11, two planes crashed the towers 17 minutes apart. And two space shuttle disasters, or rather two space shuttles crashed, or I should say the two space shuttle crashes were exactly 17 years apart, or almost exactly. They are commemorated on the same date every year because they were just a couple of days off in the calendar year, so they were essentially exactly 17 years apart. Okay, and there's reasons for that, and that in turn hints at Apollo 17, the last time that an American was on the moon. The moon is a giant rock. In the Bible, rock symbolizes Jesus. The departure of the last American from the moon was symbolic of America's departure from Christ. And what was being pointed to with the two planes 17 minutes apart. But it also hints at the timing of the flood, which was incidentally a sudden and unexpected event. And what we are predicting in this video is a sudden, unexpected black swan event, which will be a crash, which is why the planes crashed 17 minutes apart. The two of them crashed, and the space shuttles crashed 17 years apart. Now, the release of Freakier Friday on 8/8 in 2025 is 217 days before the predicted crash on Wall Street. And I should have said in this paragraph or this sentence that the two planes crashed into the towers 17 minutes apart next to Wall Street. Okay, so 217 days is this connection from this 8/8 Freakier Friday to the predicted crash on Wall Street on Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th is an 80s, as in 1980s, slasher horror movie franchise that is compared with another 80s slasher horror movie franchise, Halloween. These two 80s movies horror slasher franchises hints at 88. So, again, from the date 8/8 and the release of Freakier Friday, we have this 217 days connection to a Friday on Wall Street, Friday the 13th, which gives us another 2 8s because of the two big slasher horror movie franchises from the 80s, Friday the 13th and Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis, the star of Freakier Friday and Halloween, was born exactly 800 months before the release of Freakier Friday on the date 8/8. I should have included that there. Okay, that's 3 8s. And actually, on that note, God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. And the number 8 is symbolic of a new beginning, which is why in the flood account, 8 people were rescued on Noah's Ark. And so that's why this really should be in this paragraph here, because again, this connection hints at the flood and Noah's Ark. Again, from the date 8/8, it is 217 months to this prediction for Wall Street on Friday the 13th. And Jamie Lee Curtis starred in Freakier Friday, which was released on the date 8/8, and was born exactly 800 months before the release of Freakier Friday on the date 8/8. And that's relevant again to the flood, which is what's being predicted, a sudden, unexpected event like the flood. And 8 people were rescued in the flood, from the flood. That's why 800 months. So in other words, let me just put it this way. Jamie Lee Curtis, the star of Freakier Friday and Halloween, was born exactly 800 months before 8/8 and the release of Freakier Friday, which is in turn 217 days before Friday the 13th, and 217 hints at the flood and the 8 people that were rescued. In other words, embedded in the 217 days is an 8, if you will, and that confirms the connection from the date 8/8, which was in turn connected with 800 months exactly to the birth of Jamie Lee Curtis. Okay, and so you could say that Jamie Lee Curtis's most recent movie, probably, if it's not, it's definitely her most recent famous movie, Freakier Friday, which could possibly have ended her career because she's getting old. It'll no doubt be her last famous movie, I would assume. Anyway, it's like a bookend, if you will, because her career was launched with her role in the movie Halloween. So from the beginning of her career to the end of her career. And both of these movies, if you will, have a dark element to it. But, you know, Freakier Friday, of course, is a comedy, but the subject matter, when looked at correctly, is actually dark and satanic. I'll explain. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis, so God, in other words, clearly now we can see is pointing to the movie Halloween also here. And that's again confirmed because what's being pointed to is Friday the 13th through this Freakier Friday connection, which stars Jamie Lee Curtis, who starred in Halloween. Again, Halloween is compared with the Friday the 13th slasher horror movie franchise. Okay. Jamie Lee Curtis was known at the time, and I guess still is, but back in the beginning of her career, she was known as the quote-unquote Scream Queen because of her roles in the Halloween movies. She was the Scream Queen. She also starred in a couple of other horror movies. So she was the Scream Queen. In 2001, Halloween... Wait a second, I skipped a sentence here. Okay, so in the Bible, the floodwaters increased for 40 days after the flood began on the date 217. Again, that's the reason for the 217 days here. Okay, so 40 days, okay? This is significant here. The floodwaters increased for 40 days after the flood began on 217. The acting career of Jamie Lee Curtis, the star of Freakier Friday, was launched with her role in the movie Halloween, and Jamie Lee Curtis was known as the Scream Queen. In 2001, Halloween was celebrated 40 days after people screamed when two planes crashed into the towers 17 minutes apart on 9/11. Do you see how that all connects together here? After the two planes crashed into the towers 17 minutes apart, Trump called into the local news TV station and inadvertently trumpeted how his tower at 40 Wall Street had become the tallest tower in Lower Manhattan. The predicted crash on Wall Street on Friday the 13th, the date 3/13, will be 217 days after the release of Freakier Friday, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, on the date 8/8, and Trump is equal to 88. So this brings Trump back into it, full circle, because this 217 days hints at 9/11, which is confirmed through the fact that 217 hints at the 40 days of the flood, and Halloween was 40 days after 9/11 when the two planes struck the tower 17 minutes apart. And on that day, Trump, 88, trumpeted his tower at 40 Wall Street. And it's predicted there'll be a crash on Wall Street on Friday the 13th. But anyway, we have again back 217 days from this prediction for Friday the 13th on Wall Street to the release of Freakier Friday on the date 8/8, which hints at Trump, which again was exactly 800 days after the birth of Jamie Lee Curtis. I should say 800 months. And again, this 8/8 date was 3 months and 13 days after Trump, 88, was at the funeral for the Pope, who died at 88 and was elected on the date 3/13. Full circle here. Through Trump and 40 Wall Street, it's astounding. Through 9/11, most importantly, the big warning of God's judgment. And as I said, the release of Freakier Friday, again, was 3 months and 13 days after Trump, 88, attended the funeral of the Antichrist, who died at the age of 88. The movie Freakier Friday is about possession of human bodies by a spirit. And Curtis starred in Halloween Resurrection, one of the sequels to the Halloween movie, one of the movies in the Halloween franchise. Okay, so she starred in Freakier Friday, which is about possession of human bodies by a spirit, and Curtis starred in Halloween Resurrection. On May 2nd, 2029, Pope Francis is predicted to be resurrected from the dead by demons that will also possess the bodies of humans who take the mark of the Antichrist, or who have already taken the mark of the Antichrist. And you know what I'm talking about. And when this prediction comes to pass, it'll prove what I am saying is case closed. No debate, zero discussion, no need for an additional technology or new age of dispensation, etc. Francis, after all, quote unquote, Christians will be raptured. Enough of that, though. Francis, who was elected on the date 313, will be resurrected on May 2nd, 2029, 313% of a calendar year after the predicted crash on Wall Street on 313. In other words, the funeral of Francis connects to his resurrection. If you want me to lay that out for you, again, the funeral was 3 months, and he was elected on the date 313. His funeral was and attended by Trump 88, and he died at 88, was 3 months and 13 days to the date 88, when Freakier Friday was released, which connects with the profound 217 days because of 9/11 and Wall Street to the predicted crash on Friday the 13th on Wall Street, which again is in turn 313% of a year after this date 313 to the predicted resurrection of Francis. And Jamie Lee Curtis, who is brought into all of this, as I've explained, starred in the movie Halloween Resurrection. The anniversary of Francis's funeral on April 26, 2029, will be 3 years, 1 month, and 13 days after the predicted stock market crash on the date 313. 3 years, 1 month, and 13 days hints at 313. The predicted crash on Friday, the 313, or Friday the 13th, the date 313, will be exactly 31 weeks, and 31 hints at 13. It's a mirror of the number 13. And 31 weeks is 217 days, which we already discussed. Okay, so the predicted crash on Friday the 13th on the date 313 will be exactly 31 weeks after the release of Freakier Friday on 8/8, which was 3 months and 13 days after Trump 88 attended the funeral of Francis, who died at 88. Another confirmation here. Again, the Francis funeral connects with 3 months and 13 days, which in turn connects with 31 weeks, which hints at 13, to Friday the 13th and its predicted crash on Wall Street. Before the walls of security collapsed or crashed in God's judgment, the Israelites blew 7 trumpets and shouted or screamed. Curtis starred in 7 Halloween sequel movies over a span of 44 years. I should say Curtis, the Scream Queen, starred in 7 Halloween sequel movies over the span of 44 years. In other words, she starred in 7 Halloween sequel movies. The Scream Queen and the Israelites shouted and screamed after the 7 trumpets were blown. Now, what's interesting too, though, that the Halloween career for Curtis spanned 44 years, and the second of the 2 antichrists is the 44th president. Did I say 42 years? I meant 44 years. 44th president. After the 2 planes crashed 17 minutes apart next to the stock market on Wall Street, where people screamed, 4 hijackers hijacked the 4th plane 4 minutes before the first plane crashed. And in the 4th plane crash, 44 people died in a 40-acre pit because the plane crashed at a 40-degree angle, and the 40-acre pit in a farm field was 40 plus 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh. 40 days before Halloween, as in Scream Queen. The demons that will possess people will pass through a door and the door is the fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet, symbol for the door. I should say the fourth letter, okay? And they will come from the bottomless pit, which is why all of the 4 is connected to Pittsburgh and the 40-acre pit. The 44 deaths in a pit in the farm field in Pennsylvania, 40 plus 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh, hints at the pioneering zombie movie, which is also hinting at demonic possession, Night of the Living Dead, that was filmed in a farm field outside of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's exactly what I'm saying. You got it. It's correct. 9/11 was hinting at the movie Night of the Living Dead, believe it or not. Furthermore, Revelation 9:11 is the verse that symbolizes this coming demonic possession in the Bible, in Bible prophecy, which will happen after the door is opened and unlocked with the key, and the door is the number 4. Anyway, this is also why this crash on 9/11 with the 44 deaths, etc., hints at the Antichrist 44th president in the White House that's located on 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue, as in the crash in the farm field 40 plus 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in a 40-acre pit in which 44 people died after it was hijacked 4 minutes before the first plane crashed and hijacked by 4 hijackers. It all points to the 44th president at 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue, who will preside over this coming zombie pandemic, which is hinted at through all of this because it was filmed, this iconic pioneering movie that was filmed on a budget of a dime. It was the cheap budget, independent B movie that started the zombie obsession movie craze. Night of the Living Dead. It's all about being filmed in a farm field just outside of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. There's actually more signs to confirm all of that, including the release of... Okay, I'll just give you this. The name of the director, his name is Roman. What's his, I think. Yeah, his name is George Romero, which hints at Rome and the first of the 2 antichrists, and him being resurrected by demons who will then demonically possess people like zombies. George Romero, okay, and he made this movie, and he also made another documentary later, a few years ago, that was released on, I forget which date, but in October of 2016, and that movie, that documentary, was called Night of the Living Stealers. Night of the Living Stealers. It was obviously a play of words on his famous Night of the Living Dead. But why would he create a documentary named Night of the Living Stealers? Well, because at one point in his career, he was paid by the Pittsburgh Steelers to film the games, and he ended up filming the most iconic play in football history, the famous prophetic from God play nicknamed the Immaculate Reception, which obviously hints at Roman Catholicism also. And anyway, long story short, that movie, the documentary, was released exactly 222 weeks before January 6th, 2021, which was a zombie event. The gates, the perimeter of security was crashed by the zombie-like people that were led by the undercover people. I'm just going to not say the correct words anymore, but you know what I'm talking about. The people, the insidious people inside the swamp state, right, who used this as a way to get at Trumpers. the leftists in the government, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're a fool. And why is that? Well, I'll be easy on you. It's because you've been brainwashed into watching the left media. I could be harder on you, but let's just put it that way. So the antidote to the poison you've been taking is to stop it. Stop watching the mainstream left media, which is also controlled by these same operatives behind the scenes. Okay? So anyway, that's another subject. But 222 weeks because the mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the number 22 in God's signs. Okay, and so people are going to be demonically possessed through the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing, and you know what I'm talking about. All right, and so anyway, that's enough of that. I just wanted to add that in there because we had in this paragraph the movie Night of the Living Dead that was brought up, and Pennsylvania. And speaking of the White House, which was shoplifted, and then there was the protest over the shoplifting, we had also a very evil thing happen there too, which was the crashing of the perimeter of security, just like in the movie Night of the Living Dead, by zombie-like people who walked around like zombies, not like aggressive and, but just walked around really slowly and quietly around the inside the Capitol building that day, like zombies. Didn't really know what they were doing, just walking around dazed and confused, just like zombies. It's all a prophetic sign. And everything that I'm saying will be proven to be true when the prediction comes to pass. Do you understand? I'm not playing around here. When this prediction comes to pass, it'll prove everything that I just said. Enough is enough. Stop the left propaganda. You have been brainwashed. It's a time to wake up. I'll add a couple more things here. The truth is that you love the lies. If you don't know the truth about the sixth day of the first month in 2021, if you don't know the truth, it's because, not because you watch the left media and you've been brainwashed, but also because you love the lies. You love the lies of the left. And why is that? Because you are spiritually aligned with Satan. That's the truth. And I am trying to help you. You love the lies, and it's all spiritual. You are in rebellion against the righteous Christian God of the Bible. You are going to hell. You have and will take again the mark of the Antichrist described in Bible prophecy. You love the lies. This is spiritual truth going on here. Why do you love the lies? Because as someone on the left, you hate those who hate evil. You don't necessarily know that consciously, but that's the truth. I will also add that I know far better than you and anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. Make no mistake, I know more than you the reason for this prediction that is from God. And it is to prove to you every single thing that I have just said. And I was only scratching the surface. I don't want to make this a political video. But I need to be clear. I know more than you the reason and purpose for this prediction. All right? And it is to prove what I have just said. That is the purpose of this prediction. It is the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction, and I know more than you the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction. Case closed. Another thing to point out here is that those who love the lies and love consuming the lies from the left media are also guilty of shoplifting the referendum. Those who love consuming the lies of the left from the left media are also guilty. They are participants. And one thing that they have participated in that is evil over the last years is the shoplifting of the referendum. And because we are speaking about a coming zombie pandemic that will be the result of taking the mark of the Antichrist, those who consumed the left media during the CVD disease days and participated, and thereby participated in the cult, the political cult of the left, a religious type political cult regarding taking the mark of the Antichrist, and you know what I'm talking about. You are also guilty of mass murder. You need to repent of these things. Another thing to add here is that this 222 weeks exact connection from the premiere, the release of this documentary, Night of the Living Stealers, to the zombie-like crashing of the security perimeter of the Capitol building is also relevant because Night of the Living Stealers is all about Pennsylvania, the farm field in which first of all, the Night of the Steelers play in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where the movie was filmed, in the farm field near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where the plane crashed on 9/11. 9/11, Revelation 9/11, the verse that symbolizes the demonic possession that's coming, that will cause which will be a zombie pandemic. Now, 222 weeks, not only because it symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist, the number 22. Let me just explain that, I guess. So the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the number 22, or rather is described in the book of Ezekiel, which would have been a Tav mark, the last letter and 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd book of the Bible that has a total of the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book of the Bible, which is the 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Also, the mark of the Antichrist alters a person's chromosomes, and chromosomes come in pairs, and each chromosome has 2 arms, so 2 and 2, so 22. But also, Pennsylvania is the second state. And we have this connection from the Night of the Living Stealers, exactly 222 weeks, a zombie pandemic symbolized by the number 22 because of the mark of the Antichrist, but also Pennsylvania. We have the connection from the Night of the Living Stealers Pennsylvania movie, 222 weeks, to the zombie-like crashing of the security perimeter over the protest of the shoplifted stealing, as in Steelers, White House, which is located on Pennsylvania Avenue. Furthermore, the referendum in 2020 was shoplifted in Pennsylvania with its 2 major cities. The second state, 2 major cities, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Night of the Living Stealers because the shoplifted referendum in 2020 was stolen in the middle of the night, when the excess pieces of paper were brought in Detroit, in Atlanta, and Philadelphia in the middle of the night. Night of the Living Stealers. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.